Hello, my name is Diana Dirkby and I live with paranoid schizophrenia. You are listening to my podcast, Schizophrenia as I Live It. Regular listeners will know that I have written 2 fiction novels recently. One has appeared and is entitled The Overlife, A Tale of Schizophrenia by Diana Dirkby. You can buy it from Amazon.com. The second book is about to appear and is entitled 3 Kidnapped, 3 Siblings, 3 Furies by Diana Dirkby. The first book is available as a paperback, a Kindle book, and an audiobook, for example on the app Audible. The same will be valid for the second book. That set me to think about the following question. If I am struggling with my schizophrenia symptoms, is it easier to read a book? Or is it better to listen to an audiobook? By reading a book, I include reading an ebook. As I have described in earlier podcast episodes, I suffer from both auditory and visual hallucinations when I am living with schizophrenia symptoms that are not under control, due perhaps to too much stress or a need for my medication to be adjusted. The auditory hallucinations are usually more scary than the visual ones. Paradoxically, if I am trying to follow a book, I find it easier to listen to it as an audiobook than to read it on paper or an e-reader. The key reason for this difference is that my schizophrenia jumbles words on the page, and I describe what that's like for the character Sarah in my novel, The Overlife. It can become impossible to use my computer as the screen seems to melt in front of my eyes and the words melt with it. If I try to read a book, the words jump about the page and I can only make sense of them singly. Sometimes I only see the separated letters of the words and not the complete words. By contrast, during periods when I have auditory hallucinations, they usually last for a more limited time, anything from a few minutes to an hour, which is not the case with the visual problems. They can go on for a whole day. When the auditory hallucinations are resting, I can enjoy watching a movie, listening to music, or hearing an audiobook. Part of that enjoyment is the relief of understanding the story or melody I hear. In other words, the quality of the experience is better because my auditory interpretation is perturbed overall, but I get some rest from the non-existent noise I hear and can even get engrossed in the pleasurable experience provided by a movie or audiobook. During periods when I am managing my schizophrenia well, what do I prefer? The written word or listening to a story via audiobook? These are 2 very different experiences, both of which I find pleasurable, and I often buy the paperback or Kindle version and the audio version of a book I love. Reading is an intimate relationship between your imagination and the book. Listening to someone else read a book gives room for a different interpretation of the words than your own. You have invited the book's narrator into your private world and have the pleasure of sharing and listening to a book come to life through someone else's interpretation. To read, you must sit in a chair or lie in bed and do only that. An audiobook enables you to do something other than focus just on the book while it is read. You may take a bath, for example, or a walk. You may ask, if I have written 2 books recently, how was that possible with schizophrenia? The answer is that I find writing more accessible than both reading and listening, even when I am ill. While writing, I control the words, whereas when I try to read, the words control me. My 2 recent books have been written during a period of good mental health, which helps tremendously. I am always writing, but timing a project like a book, I have to take into account my mental health. So, what is best for you, reading or listening? A few words about my experience making The Overlife into an audiobook. I made it by partnering with Amazon. Before beginning the project, they sent me a collection of short audio recordings of different voices and asked me to choose one for my book. As my book is set in Australia, I insisted on an Australian accent for my narrator. I am so glad I did. The narrator I chose is Wendy Moman, and she does a fabulous job. We worked together in that she recorded some chapters and then sent them to me so I could review them with the written book to check for errors. There was a lot of back and forth, but we worked well together. To my joy and excitement, Wendy made my book come to life, and I experienced listening to the book through someone else's eyes who understood its goals. You can look at the audiobook on the Audible app and many other platforms. I'm looking forward to making my second book into an audiobook. Thank you for listening.